And we're live.
And we are
to come back live.
And we are live. It's the Average Joe Sports Show. Mid-bite.
He's munching on some breakfast right now. Yeah, that was the planned open in the production meeting.
That's Gary Sharp going to the 7-Eleven later to scare people. And Bad Santa. Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel with the trigger finger, and Chris Schmidt. Hope you're well. Find and subscribe the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. If I choke on air, the German Shepherd may or may not be able to revive me, but she's outside.
While you're busy finishing chewing there, I will just say when I logged on to the show backstage, I was off in another room and I hear Schmidt in his revival of the great scene in 16 Candles, dong. I don't know who you're talking to. I assumed it was one of your dogs, but it was, hey, donger. So that's what I logged on to.
Automobile. Yeah. No, I was talking to that little bastard Sterling. He's the Bernedoodle. He's the puppy, and he's waiting for his old fat sister Roz to come outside. She hates the other two siblings, and then the German's out there trying to find either a hand grenade or a red ball. I one of the two. So yeah, I was trying to get two of the three outdoors after they've been fed, so it's not a bowl party downstairs. So can find us on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod, Spotify, and iTunes. Please tell a friend, like, and subscribe. Fellas, we've got a ton to hit on. It's Portal Mania Part D. You've got college football playoff and some incredible volleyball tomorrow night, Nebraska, Penn State, as it's the Final Four. And Louisville may not have any beer left, and it's only 8:34 Eastern Standard Time there as Husker Nation has descended. How we doing? Sharpie, what's the good word, man?
It's all good. It's all good. I say hello to Santa and hello to Mrs. Santa's sister. We're off and rolling. This is the eve of a monster matchup for Nebraska volleyball. We are portaling. It is nonstop. We are trying to connect the dots on who's coming, who may have just committed to Georgia Tech, and I know there's a bowl game a week from Saturday, and Christmas is only a week away. That's all I
got. You got your holiday shopping handled?
No, not at all. I'm busy still educating. I'm still trying to figure out what that bowl game is because nobody is talking about it at all. Maybe it's because that game is in New York against Boston College isn't a no name, but it wasn't on the radar during the build up to the bowl season. I think if Nebraska was playing in Tampa or Nashville, there may be some more buzz. But because of this portal news and chaos and what's happening in volleyball, by the way, aside from the Final Four, Nebraska's bowl game is like it's almost like getting in the way of the news cycle. Like, okay, we got to play the game, but what's going to happen in the transfer portal? Right?
That is the game, you know it.
But nobody's talking about the matchups, the X's and the O's, and Boston College and Nebraska. And I mean, I can remember during the many years of 40+ bowl games in a row, you're scouting out that opponent, and you know who those players are on the opposite side, and you know everything about the destination. This is almost as quiet as the last 8 years when Nebraska wasn't in a bowl game.
Oh, great point.
We've dove headfirst into the offseason. That's the reality of the college football calendar right now. So, I mean, Nebraska's in the same boat that we in the media are, which is we're headfirst into the offseason. And you know what? There's going to be a couple days after Christmas where we'll say, oh, yeah, Nebraska plays on Saturday. Let's talk about that. And the best descriptor I saw for if the game matters or not is it's very simple.
If your team wins, the game matters. If your team loses, the game does not matter.
Absolutely.
That's how I think a lot of Husker fans feel about this game. It's going to be awesome if you win, but if you lose, well, half the team's in the portal anyway. This game doesn't really matter. It's nice to see a bowl game, but we as Husker fans didn't realize what the bowl scene was like after 8 years away, and this really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
that is the best way to describe it.
How many commitments do we have for the class of 2026?
2.
I mean, that's what the people are more worried about that than the class of 25 and who might sign in February. And that's just how crazy this is.
Well, if you're not playing in the playoff, these are for entertainment. Like I was highly entertained by the Scooters Bowl. I got James Madison and Western Kentucky on. I mean, they're entertainment. But Elijah, you are spot on how you look at a bowl game, because I would say that outside of Saturday the 28th at 11 a.m., with by the way, the weather is going to be in the upper 40s, low 50s, maybe with some rain, so it won't be bitterly cold. We're already on to 25. I mean, we're already planning what the roster is going to look like. We're not so much fretting about what a depth chart may look like on the defensive side of the ball. We're on to 25, and what spring ball is going to be like. I think that's college football outside of the playoff right now.
Yep, your needs and wants for the next regular season. What's your spring and winter? I mean, it's all fluid right now because of who you can go acquire, and you've got needs. We'll get into that. Nebraska is really making the tours happen for the offensive tackle spot. Some shout outs to get to here on the Average Joe Sports Show Wednesday Live. James was in, and James was in before some of us. James, welcome. Andrew is here along with Justin. Good to have you. All you guys checking us out here on YouTube Live. It's the Average Joe Sports Show. But guys, what do you think here with some of Nebraska's targets? It's good to get visitors. They told us that, yep, there will be monster attrition. There will be acquisitions to be had. If you're a portal guy and you're a portal offensive tackle, how attractive is Nebraska beyond the zeros? That's my question.
I think there's a lot of spots on Nebraska's roster that are appealing. It's just, I don't know. You got to get deep into why somebody commits. Like, why did Eric Rivers just commit to Georgia Tech when it made a lot of sense for him to be at Nebraska, but maybe it's, closer to home. But then you turn around and Nebraska may be getting a freshman of the year out of the ACC from Florida State. I mean, it's you ride the wave, but I think there's prospects that can look at Nebraska's roster and they can go, you know what, I can slide in and play right away. And then it becomes, I don't know, some places it's playing time, some places it's how much money you have. I think one thing to keep in mind here, and the games are fun. The other stuff is kind of exhausting, because it's been nonstop and it just hasn't been the portal. There's been a lot of stuff going on surrounding the future of college football, whether it be a junior college extra year of eligibility ruling today with the quarterback from Vanderbilt. Thing to keep in mind is this whole portal thing. The dead period begins on Sunday. And you still have time to host portal prospects until the 21st of January. You have to be in the portal by the 28th, but Nebraska is not going to be done after the bowl game. So this isn't going to go away anytime soon. But I think Nebraska is appealing. It's just, what is a particular prospect looking for? And do they want to play with someone they're familiar with? I don't know. It's everybody that goes in and everybody that comes to a new location is not created the same. And I quite frankly don't have a handle on like what is the key component to why, like a Keegan Trost, who's a Wake Forest offensive lineman, who's on campus right now, along with the Washington State offensive tackle. Why wouldn't they choose Nebraska? That makes a no-brainer. But they'll probably go through their visit and then they're off to the next stop, like Rivers was to go from Lincoln to Atlanta.
Well, and the simple fact of the matter with the portal, right, is you can't let those guys leave without signing on the dotted line.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how it's a whirlwind world of transfer portal where a guy is with you until they take their next visit, and then, oh, here's the bag that insert school here is offering. What can you? I mean, realistically, that's what it's got to be like for your school. And what guys leave campus and end up coming back, yeah, but that's what it feels like right now. Is you got to have that guy sign on the dotted line while they're in Lincoln, or else somebody else is going to come in and make another offer or impress him in some other way,
I would like to know what the rules are, though, on signing on the dotted line. And I'll admit, I don't know fully what they are with NIL, but as we talked about on the show 2 weeks ago with the whole Mississippi State situation, where a guy did sign in the morning with one and then sign with the other at night. So if somebody comes in here in the afternoon and signs an NIL deal, I mean, is the stop on campus in Lincoln not on campus, but rather at the 1890 office? Is that the main thing now, that you don't go tour where I'm going to go to class? I'm going to find out where the sleep pods are and the recovery pool is, and then I'm going to 1890. But is it a binding contract with NIL? If the college is a financial agreement that can be broken within 12 hours, then what's to say that somebody doesn't come to an agreement with 1890 and then head to Ramblin' Wreck Tech NIL in Atlanta, and it's a little sweeter there, and I sign in the evening, and that's where I decided to go. I don't know what the binding agreement is. If the financial agreement to go to the institution isn't binding, then how binding is an NIL? I'm surprised. First of all, I'm disappointed in myself for somewhat getting sucked into the, is it Eric Rivers?
Yes.
Okay. Getting into that drama, because I thought, well, maybe he's going to Nebraska. And I hate recruiting. I hate the NIL. Just sign. Let me know who's coming, who's playing, what the roster says. But I'm thinking the Georgia Tech was surprising to me, because all season long, their whole mantra has been running the football. Now, they're not the Paul Johnson triple option of a few years ago, but that's a team that made its mark this year by being physical up front and running the ball. So the prized receiver in the NIL class goes to a place where they're going to run the football. I was surprised by that and disappointed I got sucked into it.
I think
how much money's up front? I mean, if you you don't want me to go on that other visit, do I sign in blood? And is it a stack of cash, Johnny Football style?
Well, okay. So this is what I know how the relationship works. 1890 doesn't do anything on their own. All right. This comes from the football program on the feeling out of what's it going to take. And then they put some parameters, and then 1890 gives their presentation. I also think, as we adjust to this, and remember, Nebraska is not just chock full of millionaires. Okay. They don't have a whole auditorium full of big time boosters. So, they're kind of piecing some things together. I think they have a really good NIL operation, but it starts at the top. It can't be 1890 says we're going to pay this guy $1 million, and the head coach says, man, I don't think so. That's not what I want to do. It starts from the top over to 1890. Is this staff, do you guys think this staff is better at recruiting high school players than portal guys? Because this staff is built on relationships, in getting to know kids, getting to vet kids, and then building that relationship and then reeling them in, compared to the portal works this way. So player shows up on campus. They don't want the dog and pony show. They don't want to go meet the academic part of it. 95% of them don't. They don't want to have a host on their trip. They get in. They want to know about NIL. They look at facilities. They'll talk to their position coach. They'll watch a little film. They'll talk ball. They'll look at the depth chart. And then are you in? Are you out? And then you're on to your next one. Where in the high school process, it's kind of a stretched out where you can vet players and build that relationship. Instead of bam, bam, it's like, I think Nebraska is better at courtship and a long-term relationship instead of speed dating.
Well, the secondary question that I've had with that, and that's a great point that I hadn't really thought about. I've been wondering about the competition that Nebraska emphasizes, because there's schools out there that are going to promise you in the portal, here's your $1 million, and guess what? A guaranteed starting spot's coming your way here this spring. And once game one rolls around in late August next year, you're going to be our guy at whatever position you're recruiting him to. Nebraska doesn't feel like the type of school that's going to come in and make grand promises about playing time. And I mean, the money's obviously a part of it, but I've wondered about that as well. Like, does Nebraska's pitch of, well, we're not going to promise you a starting spot, but you're going to come in and compete and have a good chance at it if you put in the work, is that going to work in the transfer portal as well? Because a lot of reasons, why is a guy leaving? 9 times out of 10 in this world, it's either utilization, playing time, or money. Those are the things that are sending guys out the door. So whenever Nebraska's preaching competition and putting in the work before you get the starting job, does that work in the portal?
Well, and it may help weed out some guys that look fantastic on film, have amazing measurables, or man, you dream of how X, Y, or Z could fit into offense or defense, right? But what's the motive? You got to find, and Matt Rule talks about the why a lot, and Nebraska put so much time and effort in to getting to know a player and their family from the high school ranks. That way, what buttons to push, but also that connection is going to pay off down the road when there's some adversity and it's real easy to leave. I mean, that is the work you put in, for the best interest of the kid. I believe that with Rule and his staff, but it's also a bit of a saving grace, honestly, with, all right, me, I've been honest with you from day one. You don't like the answer I'm telling you. Here's what you can do about it. And they might think twice about heading out the door in this, free movement era. So the speed dating part is, you better find somebody that's good at it on your staff, a couple of folks, so you'll be able to have both ends of the sword, so to speak, and be right with your evaluation. Because the minute you tell a kid that, no, you're not starting, or go sit down, you're not ready, or you're not prepared, they are going to take their ball and go in today's era. And you can't have that. And that's something you got to always combat.
I wonder how many places, and I'm not saying this is Nebraska, are recruiting somebody for, say, the class of 2025 with an eye on perhaps they will transfer in 2026. And maybe Williams Nwaneri is an example of that. It wasn't Nebraska in on him a year ago, and he elected to go to Missouri. But, hey, we know you might like it over there. Go ahead, see how it goes. If it doesn't go well for you in a year, give us a call. We'll keep the lines open for you. So
the rebound.
Are you recruiting the rebound to a certain extent? And knowing that you might not get them right out of the gate, maybe Kawan Lacey going to Ole Miss is similar. I know he was committed to Nebraska for a while, but maybe there is that recruiting rebound strategy too with some guys that, okay, if you feel like you need to go there, that's fine, but just know that we'll be right here for you when you need a shoulder to cry on after the breakup.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and I agree with that. I'll give you an example, and he's not in the portal, but this was kind of the philosophy. So when Rule's staff got here, they went to Gretna. And you remember Zane Flores, who is at Oklahoma State and has battled some injuries, and he's a redshirt freshman. Satterfield actually went to Gretna, and he wanted to meet Zane in person. And Zane had heard all of the chatter, and he had been committed to Oklahoma State for a while. And so he was like, nah, man. And then Mike Cale, who was the Gretna head coach at the time, said, hey, just come down, just meet him. He just wants to introduce himself. And so the conversation went like this. Basically, Satterfield said, hey, I think you're a great player. I really like what you do, and we're rooting for you at Oklahoma State. But you know what? If things don't work out, just know that we'd love to talk to you. Kind of, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but sure. They do that. And I think you have to do that in recruiting now is, you can't cry about a kid not committing to you out of high school and go and complain about it. You got to move on to the next one and make sure you keep that relationship alive, because that kid in a year, like you alluded to, Bill, maybe calling you up and going, Coach, man, I'm not happy here. I made the wrong decision. Can we revisit? And you already have a relationship built up with that kid. And I think that's where then the portal pipeline starts. What I want to see with Nebraska moving forward, and again, to some, it's probably a little bit slower of commitments coming in, but I like that they got a long snapper and a punter, and they got a rush in. So essentially, and depth on the defensive line. So essentially, instead of acquiring talent, Nebraska looks like in the portal this year, they're building a team. They're like meeting their needs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm encouraged by that, but I do want to see Nebraska win a big battle where they have no connection on the staff. They didn't recruit the kid in the past. They have no coach that once coached him. They just flat out, and whether it be along with 1890 or just Nebraska on their own, they went out and they won this kid who is going to step on the field and play at Arrowhead Stadium next August.
The name I'm following with a situation like that, and I just want to be able to pronounce his name because I put in a lot of work. Schmidt can attest today. Right?
Fatamoe.
Close. Falili Fa'amoa. Moa? I think I got it right.
Fatamoa. Yeah.
I think you did. Nicely done.
Thank you. I put in some work on that. Washington State offensive tackle, multi-year starter now, came in as a defensive end, put on 100 pounds in college. Why I think Nebraska could be in the running there? Donovan Raiola tends to do well with the Polynesian offensive lineman. He's kind of built a pipeline out there through the high school ranks. You look at that. I know he's from American Samoa, not Hawaii, but you wonder if Donovan Railola's recruiting pitch works with a guy like that, because we talked about it a little bit on the show a little bit earlier today, Schmidt and myself on Hail Varsity, was just that he has a very, very distinct group of kids that he tends to recruit and bring to Nebraska, that being Polynesian kids and rural Midwestern kids. That's Donovan Raiola's staple with what he has built since he showed up at Nebraska. I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here, but it feels like 90% of the guys that he brings in along the offensive line kind of fit that mold. That's a name I'm following that I don't think Nebraska has a connection in the transfer portal, don't have a previous relationship, but it'd be really, really big based on needs. Come in and fill your gap at the right tackle spot immediately.
Donnie is a guy that is about substance. He's a guy that likes the work ethic and is not going to blow smoke. There is no ass kissing. And I quite frankly think that wears him out. And you've seen Nebraska with some of the other higher profile offensive linemen that they've been in on or got in late on that maybe ended up going somewhere else. And that's fine. There's a certain profile and personality that I think Donnie wants playing for him. Now, a great player could be a great player, and you put up with maybe some differences in personality, but can the player get down to work, and can they fit into that room culture? And I think that's so important as well. What you don't want is to just, all right, you busted your ass trying to recruit and you won the recruitment. Well, you can't go sideways day 3 because of a personality conflict. Please do the due diligence about the fit. And if you get that right, I think you can see big things ahead, whether it be high school, guys being patient to develop, or let's fill in a hole right now immediately on the offensive line because you hit it off with like-mindedness.
What do you make of the Dante Dowdell decision, and what does Nebraska's running back room look like to you at this point? And I'm going to start off and just say, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he put his name in. I think that there was probably a sense that maybe there's some names. There aren't that many names in the running back room. I've transfer portal room, and he felt like, I'm going to go get mine. I just when I saw that news, I wasn't as surprised by that as I was by Emmett Johnson when he put his name in.
I was only surprised because, and I know what you're getting at, Bill. I was only surprised because Nebraska was not dabbling in portal running backs. But if you consider that he wants a role and probably wants some money, like we all do, to be rewarded for a 12 touchdown season, you probably go out there and you've probably had some feelers that have, knocked on your agent's door or whoever is handling your business, and you continue that conversation and it goes down a path and you're like, you know what, it's probably going to be best for me. I mean, I'm not going to overlook, there's a lot of things about his game that we talked about all season long. He still scored 12 touchdowns for you. I think he's a complimentary running back. I think he wants to be closer to a number 1 running back, and I don't know that that's going to be the case at Nebraska. But maybe, guys, maybe he did Nebraska a favor. Now Nebraska can look at that running back room that is adding 2 pieces. Maybe that in the bowl game not only shows off more of Emmett Johnson, but maybe a Mekhi Nelson, a Quentin Ives get a look, and then you got to get a feel of what they're going to be like in the spring.
And that's what I was going to ask with this news that Dowdell's entered the portal. I haven't heard of any names at the running back position that Nebraska's been going after in the portal. And obviously it's an ever-changing landscape with the portal, so that could change 12 hours from now. But that was the question I was going to ask, is what does that tell you potentially about Mekhi Nelson if Nebraska doesn't go and bring in another portal running back? I mean, it obviously makes you think Nebraska's confident that Emmett Johnson could be their bell cow, but you got to have a secondary guy that can go in there whenever Emmett Johnson needs a breather, and also a guy that can go in and be your short yardage back, because I don't think Emmett Johnson is that. What does that tell you, though, about Mekhi Nelson if he is the guy that Nebraska feels confident rolling with as a number 2 back?
I think, they had, you throw in Irvin, you have Ramir. They love Mekhi Nelson. I mean, he is someone to watch, and keep your eye on him in the bowl game. But I think that's a great observation, Elijah. I think they look at, we're talking about chaos. Like all of us that consume player after player in the portal, we go, oh my gosh, what's going on? And Nebraska, outwardly, they're Rule's very calm and he has a plan. His plan may be, you know what? We're fine at running back. Because there was a running back from Louisiana Monroe named Maud Hardy that I really liked, that I thought, okay, could that be a guy for Nebraska that would make sense? He just committed to Mizzou. But I don't know. I'm starting to feel like they're okay with their running back room. Now would they have liked to keep Dowdell? Of course, but they're going to be fine moving forward with the kind of running backs that I think Dana Hogerson wants. I think the first 2 years, and correct me if you guys have a different observation, I think the first 2 years, Rule wanted a thick running back, thinking about the Big Ten. So that's the Gabe Ervin and Dowdell type running backs. Now, Dana wants kind of that Emmett Johnson type running back that can do both. Run it, catch it. Doesn't necessarily have to be a hammer at the goal line, because we don't want to many times be running the ball in from the 3. We want to score from the 10 and not have to worry about it.
I think you're right. Style of back with this Dana vision and offense is going to be important moving forward. I think they did look at the room and says we're pretty good. Let's see it play out, bowl game and spring ball. And if you're Dowdell, I mean, you have a new sheriff, right? It's not that he didn't play and didn't run well under Hogerson the last 3 games, but you saw it shift more towards what Emmett could do. And he got the load of the carries. The previous 8 games, I mean, it was just force feed. Gotta get the ball to Dowdell, and at times you left yards on the field. I mean, there's room in his game to grow, and I hope he's able to grow and is a 1,000-yard guy and an all-conference guy somewhere. But that combo, that 1-2 punch of Emmett and Dowdell, man, it looked like it was catching some steam these final 3 games, along with the offensive line. If I'm Dowdell, eventually I've got to plant my feet and go win a job or accept my role at a school. You're now on to school number 3. You're good enough to get offered and play at Oregon. They kind of did you dirty with the red shirt. You come to Lincoln, and that's all Sat would rave about as we got out of fall camp into the season was Dowdell, how he ran. Well, Nebraska's, I don't want to say shifted at what they want, but I think they're quite satisfied with what they have. And I'm quite excited to see the Booths, the Parkers, the Nelsons, and a guy in Emmett Johnson that all he does is keep grinding. So let's roll with him and see where it goes. I had heard Michigan earlier for Dowdell, just his style.
Yep.
And I've heard Kentucky as well, but we'll see where he ends up.
One name here. Let me just slide this in, Bill, because you brought it up, and thank you, Schmitty. So we were talking about Emmett and Mekhi Nelson. Last year when Nebraska didn't, the Kawan Lacey decommitted, went to Missouri. Speak about a bad redshirt plan at Mizzou. I don't know what the hell they're doing with their guys. He ends up at Ole Miss. So Nebraska kind of in the next cycle got a Kawan Lacey, right? In Parker. Like, I'm very intrigued by Parker. I think he's a nice compliment. And, when he signed, it was the Satterfield offense. And we were like, yeah, he could fit in that. Then you look at it, if you go back and look at his tape and you look at what Nebraska we think wants to do from the running back position, you go, man, that guy could be pretty good. So quietly, I think he's someone that was a really good pickup for Nebraska. So back to what Elijah started his point, I think they feel good about the running back room.
With Dante Dowdell, yeah, he had 12 touchdowns, but it's the one touchdown he didn't score that looms the largest. And Schmidt, you said keep his, plant his feet and be 1,000-yard rusher. He couldn't keep his feet on the ground, right? He kept reaching for the stars, but the leap's got to go. And he was cutting through the hole before he got to the line. And, the leap at Ohio State cost Nebraska. And he became a productive, 12 touchdown running back, aside from running over Shiloh Sanders. Basically the 8-yard line in. I mean, he scored the touchdowns, but it wasn't his running that got Nebraska down there. He became a short yardage back instead of somebody who's going to be a breakaway guy like Emmett Johnson evolved into this year. So, I respect the 12, but if he'd had that one at Ohio State, it'd be a whole lot different thing for me. Now, I'm going to play playground offensive coordinator here. Why not, from time to time, line Heinrich Harburg back there? Not all the time, but just every now and then, because that guy can run the ball. I know that a year ago there was people, they had to put Jeff Sims back there because he can run. No, we can't hold on to the football. But if you were to line up Heinrich Harburg in a running back set every now and then and let him run or let him pop a pass, just I think Nebraska has such a unique weapon with him that he could be a guy who could carry the ball still 2-3 times a game and get you 8 to 10 yards. I just think that he's such a utility player that he's going to be invaluable to Nebraska. That no, he's not going to be a 10 carry guy. I'm not saying that, but I think he gives you a unique, dare I say, option at a running back spot from time to time.
Taysom Hill, man, big size, get low and find the end zone.
Hey, let's stick with that. What do we think the tight end room looks like?
Oh, I think there's going to be a massive stylistic change in terms of what Nebraska was looking for from their tight ends. Like we talked about Nebraska getting into 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets. I don't think that's going to be a reality under Hogerson. I think your tight end is going to be primarily a pass catcher matchup nightmare type guy where you have a Carter Nelson or a Harburg lined up on a linebacker. And other than that, I mean, I know Hogerson has reinvented himself somewhat, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that's going 2 tight ends and 3 tight ends because it probably is going to take away from what he wants to do in the passing attack. And yeah, does it help you in the rushing attack? Sure. But Hogerson has shown that he can run the ball without tight ends at plenty of stops in his career. Are you going to have tight ends on roster? Yes. I just think stylistically, you're going to ask him to do different things whenever you look at a Harburg and a Carter Nelson. 2 guys that I think stress you more as playmakers, guys with the ball in their hands, as opposed to guys being out lead front or lead blocking, I should say.
We didn't see a lot of end line hand in the dirt. It was always kind of that offset H-back formation, and body type wise, it's going to be Carter Nelson, Bonner type that you have. And if you're going to do that wham block, I mean, you saw Nebraska use Banks in motion to seal that edge. So they'll have different body types at wide receiver, but they'll probably turn more towards that lean flex slot option versus the barreling, burling 6'4", 250 type guy. I mean, Harburg might be the last of those body types.
There's so that room is, we're trying to figure out what do they do with Carter Nelson? Does Carter Nelson become a full-time tight end? Do they have to adjust his body? You got Lindenmeyer. There's Ingerson is also somebody in that room that I actually in high school playing the Vista. I liked him as a defensive end. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing because whatever that room is, I think once you put Harburg in it, and we'd all like him to be Taysom Hill, I think you commit to Harburg being a full-time tight end. And I think that benefits him greatly to just be the tight end and be on the field more. Now, could you slide him into an H-back role? Periodically, yeah, but I think if he goes tight end, he stays primarily tight end, and that's where you use him to the best of his ability. But watch Carter Nelson. I'll be fascinated because it's almost like we forgot about him and then we wanted more of him, if that makes sense. And now I'm wondering what his trajectory looks in 25 with the little pieces that we've seen that you go, okay, that's the athlete we saw at Ainsworth.
Mhm.
Okay, but the question really is, who's sitting in the front of that room? What does the room look like?
Well, so here's two things. That's a great point. If you go back to last week when Rule was talking about his tight end room, who are the two guys he didn't mention? And I don't know. It may have just been by accident. He didn't mention Fedoni. And then Markaway, the LSU tight end who got injured right when he got here, I think is still in the mix. But that's why it adds some more intrigue, because I think a lot of us thought, man, when that portal opens at 12:01, Thomas Fedoni is going to be in it. Well, Thomas Fedoni is still here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Thomas Fedoni is planning to play in a bowl game a week from Saturday. I think Thomas Fedoni got kicked in the butt during the Wisconsin game and then responded that following week where you went, oh, okay. He looked a little bit different against Iowa.
I'm talking about who's coaching that room.
Oh,
Who's saying I like them apples?
I don't know, man. There's not many. Matt Rule may have accomplished one thing, is that there's not many 2-year runs as assistant coaches that are as poor as Satterfield and Foley in terms of their thing that they oversee, that have not done anything that has helped you win football games. They've more helped you lose football games than win football games.
I think that's the big question. I think there's a lot of talent in that tight end room, but who is leading who's got the chalk on the chalkboard? And maybe that's all going to sort itself out after the bowl game, and it's just been quiet for now. But I think that's going to add to the drama post game on December 28th.
Well, whoever it is, they will no doubt follow the marching orders of Dana, because guess what? He'd been in town for less than a week, found the podium, said, what the hell's going on here? And that was in front of everybody. Imagine a closed door meeting where it's ass chewing time.
Yeah. Part of the drama, right?
Well, I'm excited that there's no more theoretically allowance for some favorites to be played, or a certain level of play to be allowed. I just think guys aren't going to be great all the time, but they will be redirected or not play. They'll step up to what's required.
Which, I mean, you would already think that should be happening, but we know the reality of the situation. That's why there may be some guys that we don't really talk much about, that is the fire that gets them going, that they see an open door in competition where they're not blocked, even though they might be the best player during practice, that if they go out and they practice well, they're going to get rewarded. Because that's a sign of a very seasoned veteran coach, is that you use practice as the motivator. If you practice well, you're going to get the ball more, or you're going to be on the field for more snaps. And we saw that on the offensive side of the ball. And thus we saw guys who, Emmett Johnson, we were waiting for Emmett Johnson to emerge, and we're wondering, well, how come he isn't playing more? They will tell you that when Hogerson showed up, and that was the edict internally about your playing time on Saturday will be dictated by what you do Monday through Friday, Emmett Johnson ramped it up even more, and he was already one of their better practice players, just was not being validated on Saturday for the work he was putting in. And all of a sudden, in the month of November, he's one of the hardest working guys out there, and he's noticeable to a new guy that just showed up and goes, who is that 21? Well, 21 then is a prominent part of your last 3 games.
Okay, this is a small aside here, but as we talk about usage and guys earning it, I've been wanting to get up on a pedestal about this one. Haven't found the right opportunity. I think I have. It's not along the same lines. I still, for the life of me, can't figure out the usage of Micah Mazuka over the last 6 games or so. Because there's been plenty of rumblings about off the field issues that he had. Matt Rule getting up and saying, well, he's not a starting caliber player for us. Anyone that knows offensive line play knows Mazuka was the best offensive lineman that you had on roster last year. He did it at multiple positions too, both at right guard and at left tackle. I don't understand how over the last 6 games, well, see, either he's screwing up off the field and can't play, or he's a starting caliber player for you. I can't for the life of me figure out why every single game he's not a starter, and then you thrust him in high leverage moments, particularly at the end of the first half when you need some points, or in the fourth quarter of a close ball game, whenever you'd like to run the football. Like, they were utilizing him, but he's not a starter, but he's dealing with things off the field. I still, for the life of me, can't figure out what was going on with that situation.
I mean, what was going on is I'm not me, but the directive is I'm boss. I control your snaps, and they would relent when it was important. When push came to shove,
I don't get.
When it was go time, well, it's just it's mixed messaging, right? And that can't be great for morale in the offensive line room or even with the team.
Either a guy's doing it right and deserves to play, or he's not doing it right and he doesn't deserve to play. As you talk, it's the mixed messaging where, well, he's clearly not doing things right because he's not playing and he's suspended for a game. And then, oh, well, you were going to use him in high leverage moments, though.
And that just kills any credibility, right?
Yeah, I think there's another part of this
in that room.
With Mazuka, and I'm with you, Elijah. We saw when he was on the field and there was no drama that he was a key part. Is Florida didn't want him back, so he had some baggage, and Nebraska took on that baggage, and we have not seen, and some guys in the portal, they are on their 3rd team and they just need a home, and I think Rule is one of those guys that is giving a second chance, and every coach thinks he can fix somebody. But Nebraska hasn't had success on taking flyers on guys that bring a little baggage. And so I'm wondering if that has skewed their portal approach at all this year. Like Gilbert, 2 years ago, he was supposed to be a key part of the portal pickup. I mean, he was going to be a tight end. They were going to fix him. Nebraska had a system that was going to keep him comfortable, and he got, outside of the guardrails. Mazuka, they knew he had anger management problems coming in. He gets pulled in the Colorado game, snaps, and then it just basically, didn't happen. We look at Jeff Sims, the evaluation, thinking he'll be different at Nebraska. Didn't work out. The 2 top wide receivers this year, until later in the year, especially with Banks, they were very hit or miss. So, you're kind of okay. They're high level portal guys. This is going to be different because, quite frankly, I know Rule likes 2-year portal guys and guys that have been in their 2nd year out of the portal in Nebraska this past year. They've kind of popped. But I think Nebraska needs their top guys, like Winery needs to pop, like right away. They need their big portal pickups. Maybe it'd be a Key who's going to be here on Friday, the wide receiver that's transferring from Kentucky and is looking for a home. They need those guys to pop this year. Not be okay. They need to be, I need a return on my investment, so to speak, if I'm spending money on my top portal guy.
Let me ask this question real quick, and this is just, again, not I'm not up to speed on portal on all the nuances of it. Could somebody go to a school for spring ball and then go back into the portal after spring?
Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of thought that. So my question was somewhat rhetorical, but also verifying how crazy this is. So may not work for somebody in spring ball, but Nebraska still got that door open because they created a relationship for somebody somewhere. So that's, again, it was rhetorically informational.
Hey, Bill, how do you feel about Nebraska's starting punter probably next year is going to play in a bowl game with Washington?
I know. Is he going to have Huskers on his helmet label like Roger Craig and Tom Rathman and Jamie Williams did?
It's going to be like the blue-gray game where you have 17 different logos on his helmet. You'll have a W on one side and the red N on the other. And
I mean, like, do we ever get to a point where, and we don't know what the calendar is going to look like moving forward, and athletes becoming employees and contracts and all that kind of stuff. But do you guys ever foresee a time where you could pick up a portal player in free agency on the 9th of December, and if you play a bowl game on New Year's Eve, he could be on the field for you?
Sure. Why not?
Because I think early enrollees in the class of 25, I believe that they can practice with Nebraska. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. So you're going to have some playoff teams if this hell continues. Get some portal additions for the playoff push.
Yeah.
I
mean, you hire some mercenaries to come in, right?
It'll be like the worst fantasy football league you were ever in.
I know.
Last week, the team that's in last place just trades all their best players for peanuts to the playoff teams. You go, that's not fair.
I'm sure somewhere in there's got to be a rule, not a RHULE, but a rule where you might have to be enrolled academically in the institution that you're about to play for. And maybe you have to attend a pop-up class on December 10th and get a credit hour that says that I actively was enrolled and taking academic requirements toward my degree, and then I can play in the bowl game for my new team on January 1.
Bill, I need to dive into your expertise here. If the university came to you and was like, hey, with this new rule, we need a pop-up class for the football transfer so they can play in the bowl game, and we want you to teach it, what are you going to be teaching those students in the condensed time frame?
I'm going to be teaching them how the teacher gets a cut of the NIL deal to get them eligible to play in the bowl game.
You know, the old Florida Marlins fire sale. Yeah, maybe we underachieved, but let's make a deal here.
We're going to have it's going to be a geography. Here's where you are now. Here's where the bowl game is. Let's do a GPS and the mileage, and then we'll do tax deductions and whatever on my
And here's the map quest for the football facility.
Gary and Bill and Elijah and Schmidt load up a Sprinter van and leave the state of Nebraska Tuesday. How long will it take them to get to New York City, stopping for gas and snacks along the way? We'll take your answer in this online course. And here's your keyless entry card for the facility.
Hey, let's be honest here. The academic calendar is screwing with college football.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to change that and get into football quarters. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, it would be better, if college didn't come back until February. That would help out with the portal, probably.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Well, they're close to that already because they do the little mini pop-up semester.
The J term.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Just have one in late after finals week. Have one through December. You're enrolled.
Okay, so the nerd part of me look this up. So next year, the J term is going away. So Nebraska, and for somebody that has someone that's at Nebraska right now going to school, whenever they come home for holidays, like, starting tomorrow, and they don't go back until like January 20th, I'm like, that never happened with all of us that went to UNL. They're getting rid of the J term. So like Nebraska, I think it'll move up a week, but Nebraska, it's January 21st. So Nebraska is like at least a little bit extended. Maybe that helps them out in the portal if there's still some guys available. Because remember, there's still another portal entry period for teams that are playing post December 28th in bowls or the playoff teams. So if Nebraska has a situation where the first day of class isn't until the 21st or 22nd, well, maybe that works out. But they've got I don't know what to do with the calendar because you're not going to change the academic part of it. It's really rough right now. I mean, this is not good. It's kind of fun to play free agency, but in the grand scope of the grand scheme of things, this isn't good. This isn't good for the sport.
You want to get me involved in NIL and transfer portal? I'll teach whatever class they want me to, and I'm pretty sure people will do pretty well as long as I get my cut. But anyway,
are you an expert in underwater basket weaving?
Hey, I didn't come here to play school.
Hey, as we transfer, you do want to talk about volleyball. I know, Schmidt,
Yes.
you're going to want to go there. So, but I want to use this transfer portal to kind of to go into volleyball, because volleyball right now, I think we're talking about chaos in football. I think volleyball is going to be in crisis because when volleyball and Nebraska was starting to build this program and gain momentum, there were 5 programs really that could win a national title: Texas, Penn State, Nebraska, UCLA, and maybe some intangible Stanford, right?
Mhm.
You're going to get into a situation in the sport because right now there are volleyball players all over the sport that are flooding the transfer portal. Purdue has basically lost its entire team. Now that may be for other reasons besides, hey, they just want to test the market. But that's a sport where the haves are really going to distance themselves from the have-nots. And the haves are Nebraska and Texas and Penn State. And those schools that don't emphasize volleyball, like say an Iowa or something like that, they're just going to fall farther behind. And wherever the money is, the best players are going to go. And Nebraska is a school that's going to be all in. The same thing's probably going to happen in women's basketball. Those sports that are not football or men's basketball, where whatever sports that they emphasize on a secondary level, they're going to get richer and the rest are going to fall behind. And there's only really a handful of those programs that will invest in the sport. And I think volleyball, as much as they're talking about parity right now, I think there's a danger that volleyball could fall back into the old days of just a few teams winning a national championship because it's the best teams money can buy.
Do you merge into a league similar to what UNO has for hockey? I mean, do you create a separate catch-all?
Ask the NCAA.
Well, I'm asking you because you probably should be running the NCAA.
Right. Yeah, I should. Yeah, I could do better than Charlie Baker did at Congress the other day.
Yeah.
But I know I love women's volleyball, but I think that there's a real danger with what we've seen in the last few days with the transfer portal opening up and people leaving for what they think might be, part of the revenue share. But the majority of the revenue share money everywhere is going to go to football and then to men's basketball. And then it's going to be to what other sport does my school emphasize? And down south, it'd probably be baseball. Oklahoma would be softball. The California schools, who knows what, because they got to share that money with some of the other state institutions. They may not have the money to revenue share with their other athletes in the non-marquee sports like football and men's
So how long do you
basketball.
keep the sports around? What do you cut? I mean, does it just all go away?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm watching the news outside of what's going on in with the Final Four, with 4 great teams and Nebraska chance to win it and all that. But just the news around volleyball, I don't think it's in a healthy spot, more so than football right now.
Which is too bad because you've seen numbers and growth and people are tuning in to volleyball. I mean, the viewership was nuts. It was incredible, and it just keeps growing. And it's got an awesome stage. Not that it hasn't had, viewership or championship moments, but the preliminary rounds have had really good viewers.
Nebraska is driving that.
I know.
Right? And maybe Penn State, yes. Stanford, yes. But if that final ends up being Penn State,
no.
That'd be a very competitive deal, but Nebraska against anybody is what draws eyes to the sport of women's volleyball. It's the biggest brand in the world.
It is. Bill, what happens in Louisville? Let me get your thoughts.
I think Nebraska relies on the experience that it got last year in losing to Texas. The big problem in that championship match was they couldn't serve, receive, and pass. I think they've answered that this year. They're one of the best passing and defensive teams in the sport. I think Harper Murray I couldn't believe she was not a first-team All-American. I think she's playing at an incredibly high level, which they need because Merritt Beeson is slumping at the wrong time. Andy Jackson is a dominant player. Rebecca Alec is the most physically imposing player in the sport. They have everything that they need. The best setter, I think, in the game. Everything that would dictate that they should win a national championship. Pitt has been building for this weekend for 4 years. And Will that be their Cinderella story? Because, it's rumored that their coach may be headed off to the U.S. national team. And what do they have behind these 4 players? I don't know. So Pitt could be the team of destiny, or Nebraska could be the team that, writes the history from a year ago. I think they'll meet in the final, and I'll just say Nebraska wins it. What the hell?
2-year journey for this volleyball team, Sharpie.
Yeah, and they've reached a level. They're an extremely likable team where you get emotionally attached to Alexi Rodriguez. You followed the Harper Murray story. Becca Alec is a Lincolnite. I mean, they've reached the level that is pretty cool, that fans want a championship for them. Like you don't want Lexi Rodriguez to leave Nebraska without a national title, And I think everybody is tied together. I will say this: their defense, what they have done in the first 2 weeks of the NCAA tournament, their 4 opponents are hitting a combined .066. Now, Bill knows volleyball inside and out. That's unbelievable. So they're in a prime position. I don't think you don't sense that, oh my God, they're now at the Final Four. They're kind of like the same team they've been. This has been the mission. John Cook talks things into existence, and they're getting ready to play Penn State. It's not like they're getting ready to play Penn State at the Final Four in the national semifinal. I get the impression listening to them today is, we're playing Penn State again. And we're going to go out there and play. And it just happens to be at a neutral site. We're not in Rec Hall, which was a difficult environment. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm telling you, it would be a banger on Sunday. It would be great for ABC to have Nebraska Pitt, because Pitt's 33-1, and they have had 3-0 sweeps right and left, and very few times have they gone longer than 3. Bill is spot on about Pitt has built for this. But remember, Nebraska beat them last year in the semifinals. I would love that to be the case. But it's great. I mean, it's captured the whole state. What other state has all 4 teams has at least one Nebraskan on it?
None.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive.
And if you trust the folks out in Vegas, Gary, I think that's what the betting markets would tell you about what's going to happen. It's going to be Pitt, Nebraska in the championship game on Sunday. And based on how close their odds are, call it a toss-up. Give me a 5-set thriller in the national championship between Pitt and Nebraska, because you talk about all the sweeps. Nebraska, I think, is the slightly more battle-tested team with the path they had to take through the Big Ten this year. Wasn't a whole bunch of 5-set thrillers, to be fair to Pitt. It's not like Nebraska has got a wealth of experience there, but Nebraska strikes me as the slightly more battle-tested team, and I'll be curious to see, especially after what happened last year, what that team's response would be in a 5-set match in Louisville this weekend. So would love to see that, and that's what the folks out in Vegas, based on the betting markets, would think, is it's going to be Nebraska taking down Penn State. They're going to advance to take on Pitt on Sunday, and then it's anybody's match.
How crazy is it that you can bet on volleyball? College volleyball. I know you can bet on everything.
How crazy is it that Elijah has done incredible research? Love it.
I think Pitt's build up to, building for this moment is similar to Nebraska last year. The Nebraska started off with the 92,003 and just marched through, had to stumble against Wisconsin, but it just seemed like everything was building toward them winning a national championship, for a storybook finish, for a storybook season, and it didn't happen. I think to a certain extent, again, Pitt building up for this moment, pressure can get to you. And it got to Nebraska against Texas last year. Texas was on a roll. They survived Stanford last year to get there and just could not be stopped. With the way Nebraska didn't play very well against Dayton, I didn't think. Beeson's not playing very well. But if Nebraska plays like it did against Wisconsin, that was just one of the most dominant performances I've seen. That's championship caliber. And Gary, that's a similar thing. Yeah, we're playing Penn State again. Okay. They had the same attitude. Hey, we're playing Wisconsin a third time. Watch what we do this time.
Well, one of the things that was big on Sunday was that home crowd at Devaney. Maybe it's a good place to get it out. Do you guys have any predictions on what the red versus, what color would you call Penn State? Dark blue, navy? Navy. Well, what's the red to navy ratio on Thursday night?
70-30, 80-20.
Well, with the
people are spending. Let's not kid ourselves. Folks are are spending their money. I know it was Tampa last year, but they'll spend their money to go to the volleyball Final Four. It's a no-brainer between that and the bowl game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably in Louisville, but instead of going to New York, you know.
So I heard
yeah.
well, that's one quick thing on that in just a moment. There's a lot of people that bought tickets last year. Like I'm sure that when those tickets in Kansas City go on sale, because that's where the Final Four is next year, is Nebraska fans will immediately buy that. Have you guys heard this about the Pinstripe Bowl, which the weather looks like it's going to be okay? You know, maybe upper 40s, maybe some rain, but not the bone-chilling cold that sometimes we attach to the Pinstripe Bowl. That in terms of like like we're used to going to bowl games and the team is there for a while and they have a pep rally and all that they've really scaled back on all the public stuff with this. Like I don't think there's a public rally. The whole band is not going.
That's crazy for the first time in 8 years. And
Well, do you know why the whole band isn't going?
No, tell me.
Well, my sister's in the band, and they were told it was because of budgeting issues.
I would not be surprised by
well.
that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
It's crazy because budgeting issues also already took away. Remember, the Husker band used to travel to one away game per year as well.
Mm-hmm.
They already took that away. Now they're only sending half the band to New York City. And I understand revenue sharing is probably on the horizon, and you got to get some things hammered through right now with the money that you do have before you're splitting the pie with the athletes. I get that, but I don't know, that from an organization that is just raking in millions upon millions of dollars every single year, you can't send the band because of budgeting.
Well, doesn't the football department, athletic department pay for the marching band just like it pays for the library?
Well,
I think some of the athletic department budget goes to the marching band. And when you go to New York and you're going, whoa, I don't think we need to be paying $350 for a hotel room.
Well, part of the marching band, each individual student also has to pay to be in the band because it comes down to like a credit hour type thing as well.
So what you're saying is the band's NIL program at Nebraska is subpar.
I guess.
Oh my God. We got to figure this out. Where's the band revenue sharing?
Well, get to more bowl games and we'll talk.
I mean, the whole man. Remember Handshake Gate when we were all going to Nashville?
Yeah. New York, guys. I want to before we jump out, college football playoff. You've got Indiana, Notre Dame Friday. Who has more pressure, the Irish to be state champs or Ohio State and Tennessee?
Ohio State.
For sure.
Yeah.
Ohio State has shown that they are not a serious program, that they have spent the majority of the week, and this even includes the Admiral, Ted Carter, talking about the amount of Tennessee fans that are going to be there. Like, Tennessee fans have invaded Columbus, and the game's not until Saturday, and they're already playing Rocky Top on jukeboxes in places where there's a real jukebox in bars in Columbus. I mean, that's embarrassing. You know, and we got all excited about these home fields for the first round of the playoff, but Penn State Stadium, and I know weather is going to be a factor in 3 of the 4 games, Penn State Stadium might not be full. One, because the students are already headed off to, Christmas vacation, but the get-in price for like Penn State's bigger games, just the get-in price is about $200 for the playoff game, which is, I don't know, you would think it would be bigger than when Ohio State played there, is only $60. So I'm wondering, again, this is about the calendar. We talk about the calendar of the portal and all of that stuff. I wonder if they're going to adjust when we expand in 26, the calendar. Are we going to move it up a week? Because I think students being gone is kind of a big deal. But the fact that Ohio State they have to make a plea for their fans not to sell their tickets, and that there might be 30,000 Tennessee fans there. And granted, Tennessee is not very far from Ohio. The weather is not going to bother Tennessee. It gets cold in Knoxville. But the fact that they're having to talk about that, this is the world famous Ohio State. Come on, give me a break. But how many Ohio State fans, guys, are like, you know what? I really want to win the playoff game, but if we lose and that means Ryan Day is out, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the tug of war. I mean, what's the lesser of two evils here?
Did you also hear the rumored reason of why Tennessee was able to scoop up so many tickets for this?
Leaked, wasn't it?
Yeah, somebody leaked the pre-sale code to Tennessee fans, but not Ohio State fans. So all the pre-sale tickets were snapped up by the Tennessee fans, whereas Buckeye fans had to wait for it to be released to the general public.
So all of the Husker
An
fans
inside
that
hit job.
So for all the Husker fans that used KC Bear over the last 2 days instead of KC Husk,
One last thought here, just to get back to the original question, though. Tennessee and Ohio State, going to be a good football game. It's the least important college football playoff game of the weekend in my eyes because neither of those teams are making it through Oregon. So what's the point? I will go on record with that right now. Neither of those two teams are good enough to beat Oregon. They're not going to do it. It's the least important game. I could see a reality where Clemson or Texas beats Arizona State. SMU and Penn State both would have a great chance at Boise State. I know Georgia's great, but it kind of depends which Georgia you get with Indiana and Notre Dame. I just don't see a reality. Ohio State and Tennessee are neither of them this year are good enough to go beat Oregon. So that game it's going to be a great game. I'll enjoy watching it. But in terms of the college football playoff as a whole, it doesn't move the needle for me. I don't think either of those two teams stand a chance.
Wake up the echoes. I mean, Notre Dame is not talked about. They've got a fantastic pass rush. They are good enough offensively. Lines of scrimmage are good. Could see the Irish make a really big-time run.
Mm-hmm.
We will omit this part of the live show if Signetti puts one out at midfield.
Hey, I'm going just like a good captain. I will go down with my sinking ship if that take. If Ohio State or Tennessee goes and beats Oregon, I will own that.
Ohio State was up 2 scores in the regular season at Autzen, and they pissed it away. So they have the ability to do it. It's just whether or not they've been listening to the fan base scream about how soft they are. Go do what you do well on the outside. You don't have to run between the tackles if you can. That's been Ohio State's problem.
Hey, could you make a case that the best quarterback playing this weekend is the guy for Indiana?
Yeah.
You know, he is, I mean, he finished top 10 in the Heisman. This is an impressive stat. I ran across this today. Is 4 straight years. So his time at Ohio and now the lone year at Indiana, he's had 7 or fewer interceptions. He's been consistent. But, you know, I think Dylan Gabriel's the best quarterback that's still around. But would you take Rourke over Quinn Ewers?
Well,
for sure.
Klubnik?
I know you did say quarterbacks that are playing, but the best quarterback on a team this weekend might not be playing. And yes, I'm talking about Arch Manning.
Arch might see some time because Ewers dinged up. His ankle's still jacked, and their offense has been pretty pedestrian 3 of their last 5 games. They're not scoring the points they need to score. So you watch Texas go to the bullpen if push comes to shove against Clemson.
Well, they won't be afraid to do that. So, which comes from the benefit of having played him either by necessity because of injury, or they have done throughout the season, played Arch Manning a few snaps, I think just about every game that he's been able to play, which is what I said Nebraska should have been doing with, backup quarterbacks and giving Raiola a break, but that's beside the point. But they're perfectly confident and comfortable if they've got to go to Arch Manning, at this point in his career in the season.
I mean, their defense is salty. Mm-hmm. Their offense has just been kind of hit or miss, and I think that's because Ewers hasn't been as consistent. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be unique. Here's one thing. So this is the geek part of me, and the media geek, is the Notre Dame Indiana game Friday night is on ABC. The last time a non-Notre Dame home game was not on NBC, 1991.
Holy cow!
Wow, before the deal.
But look at how long Notre Dame has had that deal with NBC.
That's amazing to think that.
What was the game?
It was like a rather well-known non-conference game. Well, I mean, they were all non-conference games anyhow, but it was a pretty well-known game. So ABC gets it, and I mean, I think the visuals will be really good. I mean, there's going to be snow games. I'm a fan of the playoff. I just think I wonder what lessons we'll learn when we get through the playoff in terms of seeding, home field advantage, all of those kind of things. I think we're in for a good weekend. But what it sets up is kind of interesting. Another element is look at the 3 games on Saturday, what they're going up against. 2 really good NFL games.
Yeah, Chiefs.
Yeah, and and college football is so afraid of the NFL. The semifinals this year are on a Thursday and Friday, so they avoid the NFL wildcard weekend.
Probably smart. I mean,
to be honest,
go where they ain't.
a total dick move by the NFL to put NFL games on this.
They don't care.
Oh, you don't care about the league that develops all of the players that you go draft in the spring? I know you don't care because you're some beast, but like, if there's no college football, the NFL isn't the beast that it is today because college does all the development for the NFL teams.
Did you kiss my ring and ask permission? I mean,
I don't know.
I think they, the one, I don't know. I used to love Thursday night ESPN college football because it would usually be a good game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they're scared off by the NFL being on Amazon. So we don't really have any good outside of that 1 week to open up the season where you don't have any competition. Like you're going to have Nebraska and Cincinnati on Big Fox at 7, but the NFL hasn't started. We don't have those big, Florida State at Rutgers type games back in the day on Thursday nights. They just bow down to the NFL.
Man, it used to get Virginia Tech, Miami every season.
Like the ACC Big East would play on those Thursday nights and they'd be great.
Good.
But
Virginia, I mean, it was good.
The flip side of that is those Thursday night games aren't the college football playoff. My hope for this weekend, college football is not going to go beat the NFL head-to-head in ratings, but can they take enough of the viewership that the NFL just goes, you know what, this ain't a good weekend for us to have games on Saturday. If you can take 15, 20% of the NFL viewership, that's a sizable chunk for them. Or I think the NFL might look and say, you know what, today's not the day where we need to have NFL games on. That's my hope. And will that come to fruition? Probably not.
I just don't know why the college football would be afraid of the Amazon Prime package, given what we saw last week with Los Angeles and San Francisco in a field goal kicking contest that was absolutely brutal. Those Thursday night games are terrible. And one of the reasons why Al Michaels is actually contemplating retirement at the age of 80 because he's getting bored with those games. I want to go back to the fact that Notre Dame is on ABC, throwing us back to 1991. So what they should do is wake up the echoes and go AI and have Keith Jackson call the game AI with either Bob Greasy or, better yet, Frank Broyles call the game as a color analyst.
Keith,
why does Georgia with a tailback like Herschel Walker run up the middle on 4th and that's what they need to do. AI with Keith Jackson.
Give me Tony Roberts if we're going to go AI. I want the old Notre Dame 7-pack a day Paul Mall king.
And then Lindsey Nelson and Paul Horning on Sunday morning with a recap.
No, just give me 3 hours of Brent Musburger talking about the co-eds at Georgia or wherever. That's
why you go to Georgia.
You got Andrea Joyce and Mike Francesa at halftime.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Those
out of here.
Those were the good old days.
Francesa. Dog. I love it. Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt.
And before we get out of here, I just want to say Texas beats Clemson, Ohio State beats Tennessee, Penn State beats SMU, Notre Dame beats Indiana. I am rolling with the higher seeds this weekend. I'm locking in my predictions.
All of them are 7.5 or more?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so let me one quick thing. This is for everybody. If there was going to be an upset by an underdog, it would be this weekend.
SMU.
Tennessee is not that much of an underdog. I'd look at Tennessee, but I'd also go with Indiana. I'd go with. I think Indiana's got a better chance of beating Notre Dame than SMU does at beating Penn State. Notre Dame's going to need a big defensive performance. I think they probably get it. They got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. But if Indiana goes out there and puts up 30-plus points on Notre Dame, I think they win that football game. And if there's a team that could do that this round, like Indiana could. They've shown it. They didn't show it against Ohio State, but they've shown it this year. They have a high-powered offense. If they can go put up points in the Notre Dame defense, I think they can go win the football game. I just don't think they do.
Michigan beats Ohio State twice.
All right. We'll get to the casino.
But we're all collectively here writing off Clemson, right?
I just don't think they can score enough. against Texas's defense.
Yeah.
I also don't think they can slow down Texas's offense. I know they've been pedestrian at times this year, but they still have so much talent on that side of the ball.
The good old turnovers will be the equalizer. Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe, tell a friend on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
job, Brennan.
Black Hills Brennan is in. I love it.
An hour, 15 minutes after we've started.
We were waiting for you.
The AJ Sports Pods, where you follow us on Twitter. We'll holler back at you for the Sunday Live at 10:30. We think. And we'll have some playoff thoughts. We'll have some more portal takes.
And now we're an official show.
Yeah, because Shaggy's behaving. I have 3 psychos out back. I got to go open the gate. We'll talk to you next time.